Where was y'all at when I was putting in that work, when I was doing that dirt, when I was calling me first sight? Where was y'all at when I was put through the worst? Felt I was in a hearse, but deep down I knew my worth. Yeah, every day I did work just to get it. Every day I did work just to have it. Every day I do work, man, I came from the bottom to the top, I made it work. Every day I did work just to get it. Every day I did work just to have it. Every day I do work, man, I came from the bottom to the top, I made it work. Attention up in this thing, I'm a lieutenant up in this thing. Independent people making their money to get rich. Work affiliated up in this bitch. And you know we all stuck, we all lit. Well, if I ain't got no worries, say you ain't gotta worry about. See, I know some people didn't want me to make it. When they got a monster, didn't ask for the favors. Mom was the only one who told me she believed me, them mistakes in the grass like. I know some people didn't want me to make it. When they got a monster, didn't ask for the favors. Mom was the only one who told me she believed me. I got my homies beside me, you know that we be leading like. Bosses all in my circle, I got bosses all in my circle.
All right, everybody, we're gonna get ready for the podcast in just a moment. Hopefully, you guys are ready to learn some stuff and review some stuff too about indie game development and indie game marketing. Welcome everybody to the first ever edition, live edition of the Let's Talk IndieYuuki podcast. Live from LA, we'll be talking about today a review of this week's topics. We're going to be talking about our podcast is primarily focusing on the idea of indie games, development, marketing, as well as how are they doing in terms of the video game market. We're gonna be using the show notes today. All the links to the articles that you have been seeing me talk about for the week are already in the description below. So if you guys want to read along, you guys can. Okay. If you have any questions during the podcast that you want to ask about the market of indie gaming and indie gaming in the whole, feel free to ask in the chat. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at what we covered this week. This week, for IndieYuuki, we covered the following. Fan games and indie games coexisting. We talked about how both of them can coexist with each other and there will be no argument. On Tuesday, we covered it's the state of indie game marketing. We covered how indie games are marketed toward their consumers, and how we can learn how to market our indie games as a whole. On Wednesday, we discovered how the workplace environment is different from each other from AAA studios and the indie game studios by themselves. Thursday, we discovered of how indie games could be taking over the industry of game development and gaming as a whole. And last night, we covered the top 5 indie game development mistakes. These mistakes are the top 5 that could get your game killed off or even delayed even further than you wanted. Okay, we also have the video of the week, which is about the AAA studios versus indie game studios, workplace environment. That one received over 60 views. I want to say thank you to everybody who watched that one. Okay. We have 5 big questions based on our topics for this week that we're going to go over. And these are the questions that I think you should be asking yourself if you are into indie games or are you into like the development of indie games. So we're going to cover these after the review. I want to show you what they are. Question 1. Are indie games capable of outselling a AAA game? We're going to be talking about that. Number 2. What can we learn from indie games that AAAs need to take into account? What have AAA games have been doing that AAA games need to do? Okay. Number 3. Are AAA games removing the fun out of the games and charging us for it later? We'll talk about that too next week as well, because there's going to be a episode on something called microtransactions that we're going to cover next week. But this question is going to be relevant for one of the topics today. Number 4, what is the best audience for indie games? We're going to be talking about what could be the best audience for indie games, and we're going to be backing it up with some data on VG Insights. So VGinsights.com has some data for us to take a look at, although in the free standard account, of what can we expect from indie games in terms of audience. I will tell you there is a reason why I play a lot of indie games as well on this channel. And number 5, will we see more gamers play indie games? Will there be more of an audience for indie games versus something for like Call of Duty? Okay? So, let's go ahead and start the live edition of the show notes. If you guys want these show notes, I will be providing them in the description after the stream is over or later tonight before Call of Duty. Speaking of a AAA game. First, let's talk about fan games and indie games coexisting. So on Monday, when we started the podcast fully, we talked about how indie games and fan games can coexist. So a definition refresher, indie games are made by a small group with a passion, I believe it's passion for gaming. For gaming and to make innovative gameplay plays. Okay? So innovative make gameplay plays. Meaning that they love gaming so much to the point that they want to make their games fun. They want to make their games fun to play and not repetitive. Then we talked about AAA games, how they are made by big boy companies like Nintendo, for example, that focuses on a specific audience. There's a specific audience for AAA games, and the reason why is because AAA games, in terms of like the company, focus on a certain audience. For example, Nintendo. Nintendo is famous for Mario, and Mario, by definition, or by gameplay standard definition, is Mario. Like, he's the coolest plumber ever, and he's made for kids, in quotation marks. Made for kids because nowadays I play Mario and I'm not a kid anymore. But I play Mario because I'm passionate about Mario. So I'm still in that market in that way. But kids, more on the young kids for Nintendo. Sega is more of those Sonic people, the Sonic community, or platforming in this case, I should say. Then we have Microsoft. Microsoft, what are they famous for? Halo. What is Halo? It's a shooter game. Those are the mature audiences for Microsoft, although they do have their fair share of other games. Then we talked about fan games. Fan games are games made by a third party that is not related to any of the big companies like Nintendo, but use assets from said company. So what is this alluding to? This is alluding to the fact that these guys make a game based on, like, let's say Mario, and try to use their assets in a way that can make it fun. Most of the time you would hear something called ROM hack. Now ROM hack It looks like an indie game. It looks like a fan game too. But actually, it's not. It's neither. And the reason why is because if you're doing a indie game, I mean, if you're doing a fan game, you are using the assets of some assets from Nintendo, but you're using it in your own way. But if you're doing a ROM hack, you're totally using the assets of the company and from a third party software like Lunar Magic for Super Mario World ROM hacks. That's why a lot of people you cannot sell ROM hacks because of the fact that you're using Nintendo assets. Okay? And how they help the company, how they help the gaming economy, that or ecosystem. Fan games and indie games help the ecosystem by allowing players to experience gaming from the eyes of indie developers without the constraints of higher ups. Higher ups, including CEO and investors. And that's a big point, especially if you are an indie game developer. You are not subjected to the deadlines of a CEO or of an investor. Unlike in AAA gaming, where you have to subject yourself to the deadlines of a investor or a higher up. Okay? And trust me, when we're gonna be talking about this again later on in the live show. But investors want their money. Okay, they want their money and they do not care of how they want their money. They just want their money and run. We're gonna talk about that later. So that's how fan games, indie games, ROM hacks, and AAA games coexist with each other. Okay, so that's how this works. This market works that way. Okay. Now, what else is new? Nothing new. Now, on Tuesday, we discovered that it's the state of indie game marketing. So on Tuesday, we did this. We take a look at some articles, and we discovered the state of indie game marketing. The articles, all the articles I've covered this week, are already in the description below. So if you guys want to read on about that, you guys can. But let's take a look at the first article, and it's this one. So I'm going to tell you this is heavily data based. So I'm not going to write everything down, but this is a very heavy database. They're going to talk about how indie games are shipping in less than a year. So if we take a look at our show notes, indie games tend to ship out from studio faster than a AAA studio due to their size and how they work together. Okay. Marketing works based on where you want to share the game you are making, i.e., Steam, App Store, iOS App Store, Android, or in very rare cases, platforms like PS4, PS5, and PS4, PS5, and Switch for Nintendo people. The marketing works based on where you want to share your game you are making, i.e., Steam, iOS, App Store, Android, platforms like PS4 and PS5. Okay, that's how indie game marketing is. In addition, developers will use the advantage of going to Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and other social media to share their game, to have a marketing section for their products or any anything they want to share about the game. So this could be screenshots, this could be game videos, this could be a gameplay demo. If they want to share something, this is what you call free marketing because you pay nothing to market to these particular areas, assuming that you share the video, of course. So if you go into Twitter, if you go into Facebook, YouTube, and other social media, if you post a gameplay video on those sites, you automatically get free publicity because of the fact that they are free to use. Now, keep in mind that on Twitter, especially nowadays, Elon Musk, you have to buy the Twitter Blue subscription in order to get featured at the top. Now, I'm not here to advocate you using Twitter Blue just for the sake of the advantage of marketing your game. The idea here is to market your game to an audience that you feel comfortable with when it comes to gaming market. I would consider if I have a game I'm making with RPG Maker MV, VX8 I think, and I'm using YouTube, okay, for that material. So that's how that goes. Okay? That's the state of indie game marketing. And we're going to find out some big data in a few minutes from now of how this is working. For now, let's transition to Wednesday. AAA versus indie game studios, the workplace environment. For this one, what's going on, Zanizo? How are you doing? If you guys want to read the articles that we're going to be showing, not showing, but talking about, make sure you guys check out the description. All of them are there. I compiled them all. Okay, AAA studios versus indie game studios, the workplace environment. So we talked about how the indie games, the workplace environment is as follows. I would consider indie games have an advantage. The advantage is no higher ups, i.e., CEOs, investors breathing down your neck. You know what I mean? Number two, more of a chance for innovative gameplay mechanics. You have more of a chance for gameplay mechanics because you're not getting breathing down by CEOs, investors, deadlines. You don't need to worry about that too much. Now, of course, there's a deadline for video game development, but unlike in AAA studios where there's a CEO or your boss breathing down your neck, in an indie game studio, you're not going to get subjected to tight things like that. because it's an it's independent. That's the key word, independent. You're technically not on your own, but you are with a team. But you do not need to worry about the CEO, okay? And investors for this product. Next thing we need to talk about is how the culture is. It's more interactive with fellow co-workers, or in this case, I should not say co-workers, co-gamers, because they're passionate about gaming too. Most of them are passionate about gaming because if they are in with the studio with you, that's because they are passionate about gaming as well. They're gamers just like you are. You are a gamer, although you do have to do some more programming and mechanical work. You are also a gamer, okay? You're also a game artist. You're also a game sound designer, all that good stuff, like the AAA studios have, but you get to do it on your own terms. Okay, now, what else do indie games work in the environment? Not many people, as in small group. I should say small group. Small groups work together. Actually, that's culture. Oh, here's the thing though, money. Actually, not money, funding. This is a big one. Funding, however, comes from crowd crowdsourcing. Is what we call it. Crowdfunding campaigns. For example, and it is the most common one, Kickstarter. Kickstarter or Patreon is the top three, top two. So when you hear about the game coming out in the next few months, most of the time when you see a link, they will give you to Patreon or they will give you to Kickstarter. And that is because people, or backers in this case, what they were called, will support your game on Kickstarter or Patreon. Okay, so that's going to work. Okay, that's how funding works for an indie game. So let's review. Indie games have no higher ups. They have more of a chance for innovative gameplay and mechanics. The culture is more interactivity with fellow co-gamers. And funding is based on crowdfunding. So Patreon, Kickstarter, all that good stuff is for you. Okay? Now let's talk about AAA Studio. I should say studios, not games. Because we're going to talk about the actual games in a moment. Now, of course, when you want to publish a game, you do have to publish somewhere. Like Microsoft, Xbox, Sony, PlayStation. You still have to do that particular stuff, but you're not on a deadline. You want to make sure the game is published and polished enough for the consumers to work on play the game. We're going to take a look at an example of a game that had a massive turnaround after a very unfortunately bad launch. And that game you may have heard of, and that you may have heard of this game. Okay? It had a very bad launch, and then it had gained momentum because they took their time to release a good game eventually. And this game is called No Man's Sky. That game went from mostly negative to mostly positive in about a few years. And I'm very happy that happened. Let's go talk about the AAA studios work environment. Higher ups, CEOs, and investors want that money. Okay, they want that money. They want that money and they do not care of how they get sent money. Okay? Want the game to release on time. They don't care how. And we're going to cover this more in the next topic about indie games taking over the AAA industry. They don't care how. They release it on time, they want it on time. Culture. More stressful and more strict on deadlines and punctuality. Deadlines and dedication. They are very actually not dedication. That's a wrong word. More stressful and more strict on deadlines and yeah, that's for sure. That is definitely there. Funding is by the studio, investors, and very seldomly, and I say very seldomly, fans. And I say very seldomly because they don't usually go to Kickstarter. Because they already have a multi-million-dollar studio. And some of them are multi-billion already. So those studios in this case will be like Nintendo, Sony, Activision, Bethesda, all the things, all those studios you will normally hear about E3, unfortunately canceled this year, but you would see where they are going. Look at what's going to look at what's going to happen. Summer Games Fest is coming, and you're going to see a lot of indie games on the market very soon. And I'm actually going to cover some games on the podcast. So get ready for those puppies coming out soon. And I actually have played two of them. One of them is Tape to Tape, and the other one is Doomblade. I am very excited to make some content about AAA, the indie games. Okay, so let's review. AAA studios have CEOs, investors that want money. They want the game to release on time, and they don't care how. The culture is more stressful and more strict on deadlines. And the funding is based on the studio, investors, and fans. Actually, not fans per se, consumers. Because we're eventually going to be consumers of the product. Alright, the next topic we're going to cover for this review, and then we're going to cover the top 5 questions. Are indie games taking over the industry? And I should say the AAA industry. This one, there's a video that I link in the description below by Player 2 that talks about this particular topic, but in short, the answer is going to lie, and what's going on, Bryce? What the answer is going to be based on how you feel about this topic. So, are the indie games taking over the AAA industry? My answer is a yes, but there is a catch. There is a catch to this. I'm going to explain why in a moment. Let's take some notes based on that video. So Player 2 was going on about Player 2's video. Talks about, it's called how indie games killed the AAA industry. If you guys want to watch it, it's already linked in the description. But basically, he talks about how AAA games went from fun to boring and money grabbing. Okay? Have you noticed when I play Call of Duty? Interestingly enough, tonight at around 9 o'clock, we're playing Call of Duty. to play Resurgence. How many of you have noticed that the first thing that pops up is microtransactions before the main menu even starts? Before the main menu even shows up, the first thing they remind you of is microtransactions. And that is the money grabbing part. That's what's killing the AAA industry. And I agree. Second thing he talks about, he uses COD as an example. And the way he does it is he uses COD as an example and Halo as an example. Because in COD, you had the fun parts. COD was fun back then. And the way it was fun was midnight releases. And what they had at the time, double EXP Doritos. So basically, you had to buy certain packs of Doritos chips and a code. You can use, and you get code for double EXP. That's how that went back in the day. They don't do that anymore because nowadays in Call of Duty you can just get double EXP from the Battle Pass. COD was fun. Midnight releases, 2x EXP Doritos. Same thing for Halo. Halo was fun. And he released the midnight releases too. The midnight releases was fun, and then you had the talk of LAN parties. Who remembers those? They don't have LAN parties anymore because nowadays it's Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, Ethernet, you have the internet cafe, all those good stuff. Nowadays you have all those good stuff like the Wi-Fi. Back then you had to buy a separate cable. And then you have to do all this weird stuff. You would bring your Xbox to a party. Then you have this cable that you have to buy, you have to hook up, and then you can play together. That was the LAN parties. LAN, Local Access Network. I believe is what it's called in the programming world of internet. But local access network. And you have to use this in order to play online with people now. Back in the day. But not anymore. Then how COD and other games got bad. You have battle passes. You have pay to win. Pay to win mechanics, and you also have cosmetic. Now I do want to give an exception, however, to Fortnite. Fortnite gets actually an exception, and here's why. Because Fortnite does not have pay to win. It has cosmetic stuff in battle passes, but at least in the battle pass you can also earn like other materials, like those skins and stuff. But unlike with Fortnite, Fortnite does not lock some of them behind a paywall. Unlike Call of Duty. Call of Duty, if you want those skins, you have to buy them. And not only that, it's expensive. It's very expensive. For example, there's a new skin that's coming up, I believe. There's 3 new skins coming up, and I believe 2 of them are already out. So, Nick Merckx, I forgot how to spell his name, but Nick Merckx and Tim the Tatman are two of the big streamers on YouTube, and both of them got a skin for COD, and you can buy them, I believe. And if you are into the NBA, recently it was announced that Kevin Durant is going to have a skin in Call of Duty, this current one. Okay? That's right. Kevin Durant is going to be a skin in Call of Duty. And if you want to buy Kevin Durant's skin, you better start to fork up $30. And I am not joking. It's that expensive. I think it's $30 or $20, but no matter what, it's expensive. It's like buying a VR chat model for $30. I would rather buy a VR chat model than the Kevin Durant skin. Oh boy. And remember, I don't play COD that much. I just play just because. Okay? So that's how the things are going on for that. And look at how indie games are doing. They give an example of Stray and Project Zomboid. Project Zomboid. Project Zomboid and Stray are two indie games that are currently out in the market. And both of them are really good. Oh my goodness. I mean, they're really good. They look really good too. We gotta take a look at that. Because Stray is a game with a cat. Project Zomboid is a game with zombies. But the way they are looking, it looks like a AAA studio made them. Not an indie game studio, but they are both indie games, both of them. And the way they look, it looks like it came out at AAA. Okay? Look like they came out from a AAA studio, but they are indie games. Graphics and gameplay are nearly original. Actually, not nearly original, are really original. Who I want to play as a cat who sneaks around the house. I'll do that. Give me uh forget the dog trainer, forget the cat trainer. Let's go play as a cat and go around the house. That sounds fun than what Call of Duty is doing. Okay? Seriously. No cap. And now that we're talking about indie games, I'm gonna be playing more of them for you guys, even with Francis the Hedgehog, because there's one game that I really want to play for you guys, and I am excited. I would do an indie game channel, but I want to see where indie games go on this channel first before I test it out on the other channel, because I might start doing that along with the game reviews. Okay. Game mechanics, gameplay mechanics are original or inspired by other games. And the CEOs have no say in what they do. No say. Zero. The indie games are starting to take over, in my opinion, but I have to talk about the catch. And then, finally, the top 5 indie game developer mistakes. Unfortunately, as everybody knows, not everything is perfect. No game is perfect no matter what everybody says. However, we talked about the top 5 indie game developer mistakes. Number 1 was the fact that it's too large or too complex. Game is too big and game is too complex for small team to finish. They did that loop. Remember, there was a loop diagram that said on the top left, new idea. To the right, they draw the arrow to the right, and they said, new idea, and then tell your friends, develop the game, and then downstairs, tell your friends, and then go back to new idea. So you don't have an end point, not even to finish the game. That's how hard it is because of your complexity of the game. Number two was the was the fact that if we go into this article. Oh yeah, here we go. Number two is the loop of restarting, like I mentioned. Again, all the articles are in the description, so if you guys want to read them. Number two, loop of restarting. Develop a game only to restart development later. That's a loss of time and money. Because yes, even though you're a small studio, your budget as a small studio is far less than a AAA studio. Because you're relying on crowdfunding. You're relying on Patreon, or Kickstarter or anything like that. You have to be very careful when it comes to this idea. Number three, playtesting or lack thereof. Develop a game that has a missing. So develop a game that shows that there were no testers, no game testers, excuse me, in the room. Okay, and this could lead, the lack of playtesting could lead to unintended bugs, glitches, and programming errors. And it could also lead into negative publicity. If you don't play test your game, there is always a shot that you're gonna have negative publicity. Even with a good game, you could still have negative publicity. But you're gonna have more negative publicity when it comes to no play testing. Mistake number four. Mistake number four, according to the article, was number four was going to be marketing. Let's see, wrong genre or platform. I'm not going to dive into more of that, just because it's more on what platform do you want to be on. PlayStation, iOS, all that good stuff. So instead, we're gonna go into number five. Number four, lack wrong genre. I spelled wrong correctly. Wrong genre slash wrong platform. Number five, lack no, not lack of marketing, procrastination. Marketing procrastination is a very big one, ladies and gentlemen. And this is when you develop a game that is nearly 100% completed, which is great, but have not reached out to an audience or potential audience. Develop a game that's nearly 100% completed but have not reached out to a potential audience. That potential audience is very untapped. Okay? You might have an audience back there. You might have an audience on Twitter. You might have an audience on Facebook. You might have an audience on YouTube. But if you show off your game in terms of the marketing stage at nearly 100% completed, that's late. That's very late. Okay? Number one, their bad marketing techniques like market too late can lead to a potential backlash based on how the game is received. Now, when I say received, I mean to say how the game is viewed or how the game is played. I don't mean how you buy the game, Steam, Marketplace, etc. I mean is how the game is received by the public. What's the publicity in this case? Number two, number deuce. A bad timing for marketing is when the game is 90% to 99% completed. There was no time for the public to do a beta or create hype around the game, i.e., i.e., YouTube videos as content or them content creators showing off your game. This is bad. If you're marketing your game when there's 10% left of development time, you are doing it incorrectly. Because at that time it's too late. There is no time for an audience to get into your game. What if there was a problem with the game and you have no idea about it? If you market it at least with a few stages, then you can see a feedback. Okay? That's what that is. Feedback. You want feedback on the game or product. And this doesn't just return on gaming. It is on anything. For example, I'm gonna give you an example with chips. Because I love me some chips. These chips, okay? These are Calbee chips, Korean chips, I believe. What if we get marketed this thingy when there's 10% left in terms of development of this chip product? How would I feel as a consumer? Oh wait, I didn't know Calbee makes chips. Maybe I should try. Or another thing would be like, oh, Calbee is making chips now? Oh, okay. But you see how I'm saying those things. Unlike when it's like earlier in marketing, like 10% in, I'm gonna like, oh, that looks cool. Oh, Calbee makes chips. I gotta check that out. And then I buy a sample product, and I review it, and I create hype for it. I make a video. I make content. I make Twitter posts, and then I'm gonna say hashtag Calbee honey butter potato chips or something, because that's the flavor of this one. I'm not gonna eat it on stream, but I'm just giving you as a marketing example. The same thing with chips. You have to take it seriously when it comes to gaming as well, game development, because that's how you're going to create hype and all that good stuff. Okay? So the perfect timing is every 10 to 15%, I would say. Finally, that is it for the review. Before we take a look at what's coming up next week for the podcast episodes, I want to go over some top 5 questions that might be answered, that you might have based on our articles readings for this week. I'll do the same thing again next Saturday, but for week 2 topics. So the theme of this week was getting our steps into the workplace of the environment of indie gaming. So the big questions about this week. Number 1, are indie games capable of outselling a AAA game? To answer this question, I'm going to say an indie game is capable of outselling an AA game, provided that the game markets itself correctly and can stand out in a crowd of other games out that week. And I specifically said out that week because on one of the articles that we read this week, we talked about how games come out every week and sometimes every day. And for that week, you have to try to stand out. If you're going to release your game on that week, you want to try to stand out based on your marketing, your screenshots, your videos, your gameplay mechanics, all that, to get to that selling point. Now, will you be able to outsell a AAA game? Not in the first few days, no. Obviously not, because they're multi-million. But it is possible for a indie game, when done correctly, to outsell a AAA game. We're going to see some data to see if it has happened. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a look at VG Insights. Question number 2. What can we learn from an indie games that AAA games need to take into account? They need AA games need to take fun into the account when making games. They have been removing the fun factor and replacing it with scummy tactics, i.e. microtransactions. And that leads to my third question about removing the fun. Are AAA games removing the fun out of games and charging us for it later? And the answer is yes. They are doing this through the use of microtransactions to nickel and dime consumers in order to get the most money possible. Okay? They want consumers to purchase packs, cosmetics, pay to win items to make money. Fortnite can do this, except it's just for the excuse me, cosmetics. But Call of Duty is notorious for this. Call of Duty is notorious. FIFA is notorious. And remember, FIFA in particular has been under fire. Not FIFA, EA, I should say. EA Games, EA, the one that makes FIFA, they've been under fire for the last couple of years because they know that they're trying to market the microtransactions, the packs, for example. And remember, just recently they were in part of a lawsuit that took place recently about those loot boxes because remember the game itself is marketed towards children, kids, soccer, because it's rated A for everyone. And the reason why it's because remember microtransactions promote gambling in terms of EA's games. And gambling is actually an adult activity. Kids should not be spending over. I read an article, it's not on this week. I will be talking about it next week for the marketing section. And we'll be talking about how microtransactions play a part into well, some indie games do some microtransactions, but not many. Okay? But there was a case where the people at EA treat this as surprise mechanics or Kinder eggs, believe it or not, or surprise mechanics or Kinder eggs or oh here's a box, open the box, you get money or something like that. Okay? And that's bad because now they're in trouble. But look at what happened. All the games nowadays are in microtransaction protocol. They want money, so they charge us for cosmetics. You want LeBron James in NBA 2K23, you have to buy microtransaction cards, and you have no idea if you're going to get Mr. LeBron James. Okay, look at Kobe. Kobe's card could be in there as a legend. Rest in peace to the Mamba. But still, look at what that's prompted other materials happening too. So the microtransactions is gambling in a sense. Okay? Oh, and by the way, remember, you're not guaranteed no LeBron James. Not even Anthony Davis. Number 4, what is the best audience for indie games? Well, considering that we're podcasting about indie games, well, kind of. Here's the best audience. The best audience is so for those who do not like what the AAA developers are currently doing in the market, like microtransactions, gummy, not gummy, gummy packs, and other notorious practices. That's the best. That's the best audience for indie games, I would really think, or the casual people. But in the case of our talks this week, the best audience for those is for those who do not like what the AAA developers are currently doing in the market. For example, microtransactions, gummy packs, and other notorious practices. Okay, I'm in this market because of me covering the indie games, and we're gonna start covering more indie games very soon. So as soon as we get through next week, we're gonna start playing more indie games for you guys, even if it's Francis the Hedgehog Fridays. Okay. Number 5. Will we see more gamers play indie games? This one is a tricky one, and the reason why is based on audience. Okay, so before we answer this, let's talk about more on how to get to this answer. The correct answer is depends on the current state of video games. And the reason why is because AAA games could be very good this week. And then all of a sudden next week it will be bad. For example, three games, one game that comes into mind when it comes to a AAA game is Hogwarts Legacy. That game just came out recently, and it's one of the top ones. One indie game that you want to pay attention to is Hi-Fi Rush. I played it on this channel. I'm gonna tell you that game actually missed one of the rules of game development, and that was the marketing. They actually had no marketing at all, so they basically winged it in a way. And you know what? They have a good game on their hands. We're gonna take a look at some data in a moment. They have some they innovated something cool into Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush, for those of you who do not know, it's a RPG game, but there's a rhythm-based element. So you listen to the song in the game, and then based on the beat of the song, you actually hit the attack button on the beat too. And there's one for like resting period. There's one for like 8 notes. There's quarter notes. All that cool stuff. If you like into rhythm and role-playing games, Hi-Fi Rush, you can grab it on the Xbox Game Pass. That game looks fire. And I'm going to play it again for you guys as part of this podcast. Okay? But not today. Not tonight. Okay? So my answer is depends on the current state of video games. Alright, now let's give you a preview of next week. And I want to go over some feedback from you guys as well, because you guys voted on the poll for my poll here. And I'm going to reveal that in a moment. But let's talk about a preview for next week. So next week we're going to be diving into the marketing part. So we talked about a little bit about it, but now we're going to be talking about the numbers, the sales figures, the data. And actually I want to give you a preview of that in a moment. So next week, our team for our episodes, there are 4. It's the business and data side of indie gaming. We're going to be taking a look at the games coming up this year in a video. Actually, I might break this up into 2 because the article I found has over 30 games, and I want to cover as much as I can. We're also going to be using VG Insights today in a moment, and for next week, we're going to be taking a look at the sales figures for some of the indie games that are currently out there, including a game called Among Us. Everybody knows about Among Us. Anyway, then we're going to take a look at why indie games don't push microtransactions. And then we have indie games versus AAA games, analyzing the data. And we're going to be taking a look at VG Insights. And actually, why don't we take a look at that now? Because I want to show you guys how that platform works. So, but before we do that, I do want to go over the results of the poll that I showed you guys a few hours ago before the podcast started. And I would like to present to you those results now. And here's what you guys said. How are you feeling about the IndieYuuki podcast? And most of you guys actually enjoy what we have to learn here, except that it's too long. The reason why I put it too long is because I go in depth on the article. So I will try my best to shorten the episodes a little bit more so that you can only get the main points. Okay? That's why I have the show notes on my Google Drive for you guys to download at any time. Okay? But I do understand your voting here. We also have 17% say very informative, but keep it the same. 17% also for focus more on data for indie games, which we're about to find out about in a moment. And 17% also said more video game reviews and talks rather than article readings. So instead of me going to the articles to give you information, you guys want me to talk about the games or the reviews rather than read articles. And I do understand where you guys are coming from. Okay, remember this is my first rodeo with a video game podcast. Ever since I stopped doing Lake Show talks. Actually, I was inspired to do a podcast because my old stuff in the Lake Show talks. Did I know what that is? Lake Show talks used to be a channel last podcast I did for the Los Angeles Lakers because I am a Laker fan. But I haven't been able to do it because of my VR chat material. That's what's been going on there. And I actually just announced I'm going to be doing a podcast again about VR chat. So look out for that in the very near future. Now we're going on to the big boy material. We're going to take a look at VG Insights. I would like to present to you guys VG Insights. The VG Insights is a website that allows you to take a look at data for gaming. For example, I'm gonna be one moment. I'm going to do hide my screen for a moment because I might need to relog in. So give it one moment. Make sure you guys vote on the poll on the thing here as well, okay? Now, okay, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna uncover my screen now. Oh, oops, not that. There we go. The VG Insights allows us to take a look at data for marketing insights and analysis. And this is for particularly video games on Steam. Okay? So let's take a look at what we have here. I want to present the software first before we talk about the next week's episode. So how I'm going to show you guys. So the price distribution is based on the games on Steam and is currently based on games release. Well, there are 20% of them are free games, which is about 14,943 games are free. 39% are between $1 cent and $5, or 29%. Excuse me, 29,000. 21% or 15,482 are in the $5 to $10 range. 15% of the games are less than $20 or 11,218. And finally, $20 to $40, 2,983 games or 4%. And the very small 888 games or 1.19% are over $40. Okay? So as you see here, this is the price distribution. How much are the games that you can buy currently on Steam this week? Now keep in mind this is this week because they're going to update it next week as well because of the new games coming out. Okay? So let's take a look at some data. We're going to take a look first at a AAA game, and I want to break it down. And we're going to use more of VG Insights next week. So if we take a look at AAA game like Call of Duty, let's take a look at the current Modern Warfare. So let's take a look at the quick stats as of today. 37 minutes ago from this recording and live podcast, and we're about to play later tonight, by the way. 67,622 people are playing. That sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot. And I'm going to tell you why it's not. At the 24-hour peak, active players were 102,000. However, their positive reviews are only 61.3%. Why is that? We're about to find out. Their gross revenue or their total revenue over the lifetime of the game since last year is 592.7 million. They have sold 11 million units. The average playtime is 120 hours, and their median playtime is 80.4 hours. Okay, now let's look at some more numbers. Take a look at this historical data. We're going to take a look at revenue increase. Eesh. Oh dear. Oh dear. Unless no, actually I think this is today. I think they have not updated this. So they need to update this, but I don't think it's 0. There's no way it could be 0. They have not updated this for today. So the last number is $792.85,000. That was yesterday. Total followers. Here's how many reviews it has. But here's the rating. It's been going down. It went from 61.8% positive all the way down to 61.28%. It doesn't sound like a large increase, decrease. But if we take it in the last 3 months, from February to this month in May, they started out at 62.42%. They went down to 61.28%. So they went down almost a full percentage point in 3 months. Why is this the case? The reason why this is the case is because of what's been going on with COD. And some more numbers. Let's have a look at some more data here. The price, they started out. Actually, let's get it from October of last year because the game came out October of 2022. Oh, we can't. Never mind. But yeah, look at where the price is. $70. And they only gave you a discount for a little bit. And they actually had a free multiplayer weekend, I believe, to celebrate the start of season 3. But how is that going? Not good. Okay. However, let's take a look at another game. Among Us. This one. Let's look at this game. Among Us. 4,735 people playing right now, 41 minutes ago. 6,957 players active. However, look at that review number. 91.8% positive rating. That's a 30% increase over COD. Even though the gross revenue is 34.3 million, they have way more positive ratings than COD. Their average playtime is 51.4 hours, and their average medium playtime is 31.2. And it's only a $5 game. And even with a discount, it's still a $5 game. Look at their let's look at some stats. let's look at their total followers. They already have almost 300 something, 320,000. They're at 316. And I don't see this game dying anytime soon. Total reviews. Rating, excuse me. The rating has not gone down much at all. Their highest rating is 91.81%. Their lowest rating is 91.8%. Literally no change. Maybe 100 off. But it's a very good number. Basically saying Among Us is doing a lot better than Call of Duty. It's not because of revenue, it's because of how positive the game is. So that's what you can learn from the data as of right now for this particular episode or for this particular period of time. It's not much because I don't have a indie or business account, unfortunately. Because with an indie or business account, I can actually check out their player insights, players by region, who is playing this game. From what I see from the preview, it looks like Europe and North America are tied. Oh, and Asia. These three countries are tied for the leads when it comes to this game, with Europe leading the charge on Among Us. According to this preview, I'm not sure if this is correct. I have to buy the subscription. But you see my point. And then we're going to take a look at the supply and demand curve when it comes to gaming next week. Okay? This is more for the developer, but I'm using this as an analytic tool to show you how indie games are doing compared to their AAA counterpart. Because it looks simple enough, but you have to read it in a way. You have to understand this in a way from a gamer's perspective and a business perspective. Okay, the average rating right now is a high 71% for adventure games right now on Steam. What if we look for a game that is not well known that deserves some praise? Like a game I'm playing called Tape to Tape. Tape to Tape is a game that I'm currently playing. Let's see this. Hey, not bad. Right now it's early access, so 810 people are playing 44 minutes ago. 967 are active. 90.4% of positive reviews. $386,000 revenue. That's not bad at all. 26,820 people bought this thing. I'm one of them, and I love it. And I'm going to do a review of this game soon. Actually, this is not correct stats. The players region, this is just like a little sample. But if I do decide to give you guys more data on gaming next week, and I do decide on that, I will be getting an indie account for this. But that's only if I feel like it's needed for this podcast. The ratings on this game have been up, and it went back up. 91% on May 3rd when it came out. May 4th, it went down to 84%. Today, or yesterday, it's back up to 90% in terms of positive rating. And their price is $20 if you add tax. Right now, in terms of positive reviews, they're in the top 7%. In the lifetime gross revenue, they're in the top 6%. Oh, and by the way, this is an indie game we're talking about. If you hit the top 10%, you're really in a great spot, actually. You're in a great spot. Lifetime units sold, top 10%. Units sold yesterday, top 0.2%. Followers, top 5%. These stats for an indie game like Tape to Tape that just came out like last week, you're in the top 10% of all category. And this is a good example of a game that people should play. Like no cap. Okay? Based on the data that is currently active on BG Insights. I actually wish I had what Devin Nash had. That geek GEIQ, it's pronounced geek, but it's spelled GEEIQ. But I'm not a $12,000 business right now because it's $12,000 investment to get it, unfortunately. But I'm very happy with VG Insights to start off my little data analysis thingy here for this podcast. I'm very happy about it. Okay, and you can tell. You can see some other data like publishers. I look at Activision, their genre distribution, all this good stuff. They are worth right now. Their lifetime revenue is 1.6 billion. Billion would it be? You want to say thank you to those microtransactions, Activision. Seriously, no cap. 91.7 million billion. Excuse me. 1.6 billion. Their first game that they published was in 2006. Their latest game was March 7, 2023. Yeah, they're a AAA company. And most of their games are in the action category. And you can check out the games that they have. You can sort it by review rating, Steam rating, all that good stuff. Their best game that's actually a game is called Zork Grand Inquisitor. I have never heard of this game. And it's $6. It's not an indie game because it is AAA. But you're looking at a $6 game that has a 97.4% positive rating. There's no active players, which makes sense. They're really good. It's in the top 25%. I have never heard this game from Activision. I heard of Call of Duty though. I've heard of Spycraft. I've heard of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodline. I heard of Spyro. Look at that. And it's $40. So that's it for today. I hope I showed you guys some data that you might be interested in. If you guys want more on the data and stuff, we're going to take a look at that next week. We're going to take a look at VG Insights again, and we're going to be taking a look at specific parts of indie gaming when it comes to marketing and microtransactions. We'll also be taking a look at some data when it comes to the gaming side of indies. Okay? For now, that is all for today in terms of our talks. But we are not done streaming tonight. We have something called Call of Duty tonight, and we're going to try to get another W. We're going to try to get another win for our Season 3 campaign. We have one win so far. I am excited to do more Resurgence. Call of Duty is back. And you'll see me doing more indie games than usual. Aha, yeah, I love it. That's all for now. We'll see you guys at around 9:30, 9 o'clock for Resurgence. We might be playing with Gaming with Green tonight. So look out for that. Until then, Don't forget to live life to the fullest, and we'll see you guys at 9.
Put in work. I put in work, yeah, I put in that work. I put in work. Where was y'all at when I was putting in that work? When I was doing that dirt? When I was calling me first sight? Where was y'all at when I was put through the worst? Felt I was in a hearse, but deep down I knew my worth. Yeah, every day I did work just to get it. Every day I did work just to have it. Every day I do work, man. I came from the bottom to the top. I made it work. Huh? Every day I do work just to get it. Every day I did work just to have it. Every day I do work, man. I came from the bottom to the top. I made it work. Hey! Attention up in this thing. I'm a lieutenant up in this thing. Independent people make